Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome folks to the Hungry Gamers back with another mini review, and today we're talking about Apex Legends. And I'm not holding it up because it is huge. And this is a game that was sent to me by the publisher to cover, so thank you very much for that. And this is a game that is trying to replicate the video game skirmish shooters that are so very popular, and Apex Legends being one of them. And there are a couple different modes that you can play. You can play a solo mode, which is sold separately and is not in the core box. So actually I do not have that, and I can't actually speak to that, though there are two very good videos talking about it. If you just want to kind of learn, is it for you, I would recommend checking out Not Board Gaming's 5 topics about it. And if you actually want to see gameplay, I recommend checking out One Stop Co-op Shop's video, who has been kind enough to allow me to use his footage, and I will explain why when I get to the quibbles of this video. So, as I mentioned, this is a skirmish shooter game, and each player is going to take on the role of a legend. Each legend has a different kind of loadout, different stats, and a different deck of feat or ability cards they're going to be using. And each turn you're going to have a couple different activations. You might use an activation to move or shoot. It's very important. You can only shoot once per turn. Maybe you'll throw a grenade. Maybe you'll activate one of your abilities. Whatever. And basically you are trying to kill the other players. And every time you kill another player, you're going to be awarded points. And if you are killed, then you will be able to spend an activation to respawn and kind of come back in. And when you respawn, you'll get all your gear back and all those kinds of things. And there's loot boxes that'll be showing up and all the types of things that you expect to find in these kind of shooter video games. And kind of the core is, as I said, you're using your action points to move, and part of the movement is you're kind of climbing up buildings, and there's all sorts of levels of terrain you'll be dealing with. But you'll be moving, and you'll be shooting and using your different abilities, and each turn you'll be getting new cards that are going to be kind of coming out. At the same time, the board's going to be kind of shrinking down. There's these little ring things that are kind of closing you in as you kind of go through the game. And when it comes to shooting, what's going to happen is you're going to have a number dependent on the range that you are away, the weapon you're using, and elevation. Shooting down, you get a benefit. Shooting up, you get a penalty. There's benefits to being hidden behind walls, and yada, yada, yada. What's going to happen is your weapon is going to determine how many cards you're going to draw. And you're going to draw out all of those cards, and you're going to put them on this little line. It's going to start out with just plain nothing. And whatever card's there, that is the number. And if you are over your number for your weapon, then you will hit. But then you get to keep on shooting, because it's, again, these video games where you're just, opening fire and shooting your machine guns and stuff. And then you put cards down next to it, and each successive card gets a penalty to it, meaning it will be harder and harder for each successive card to hit, and each card will also have on it different symbols, which might mean, well, if your target is in cover, you don't hit. There's symbols that are like these half hits, and if you get 2 half hits that miss, it actually comes together in one normal hit. There's headshots, and all these different things you're going to be doing, and you'll be knocking away people's shields, and then you'll be hurting them and trying to kill them. And that's kind of the core of the game. The really important thing to know here is that kind of timeline thing that you're dealing with. I call it a timeline. It's not a timeline. But the thing that is representing kind of the recoil that you're dealing with as you are shooting is the most important thing to understand if you are interested in this game. Everything else is ancillary to that. Yes, there's a whole bunch of terrain and things you're going to be doing, and there's a whole bunch of abilities you're going to get, and there's line of sight and this and that, but the core is that shooting mechanic. That is what is going to make this game shine for you or not shine for you. And so rather than spend any more time on trying to talk about what it's all about, again, go check out one of those videos. You'll get a great description. Let's talk about what do I like about this game. The first thing is it looks really good. The minis are nice, and that terrain, once you get it all set up, just looks awesome on the board. It looks fantastic. And particularly I want to talk about the different levels that you have, and also some of the special things that you get for the different legends that you have. Like there's little smoke things you put up, but they come down as a little X there, so you can kind of hide around it and you know who's in the smoke cloud, and just things like that. Is very, very, very clever the way that they put those together, and it looks great, and it's also practical in the sense that everything that's out there has a purpose when you're playing the game. That's just great. It looks awesome, and it's one of the very few games I think that really does a good job with elevation as far as the bonuses and penalties that you get, because it really makes sense. It really is important, and because of the way they've built these buildings and stuff, it looks really good as you're doing it. Next thing that I'm going to say are the different abilities that the legends have. The feats is what I'm talking about. The cards are really cool. There is one thing that I actually learned about watching Michael Kelly's video, and I immediately tried to do it when I actually got to play, is this one character makes these little portals, and you can kind of use a portal, and you can jump through the portal, shoot somebody, jump back through the portal, you're on the other side, or even better, you can find a way to knock them through the portal and bring them around, and it's just really cool the way that it works. And all of the different characters have such intensely different abilities that can set up these amazing combos if you can do it right. Very, very cool. Next thing I'll say is it has the kind of ring that kind of closes in. I've never seen that before in a skirmish game, and it's really cool the way that it does that. It just brings you closer and closer and closer, so it's constantly going to make later turns feel tighter and tighter and more vicious. And it also takes away that problem that you can have in this kind of game if you're spawning and it's the last turn where you can't get anywhere. You can't do anything. But now suddenly everything is tight, and that's very, very cool. Next thing I'll say is the game feels unique. I haven't played all of these types of skirmish games, but I've played a fair amount now. And they're always a style of game that I want to really like, and very few of them really grab me. And even the ones that do grab me and have grabbed me, I don't play very often. But this one, to me, feels unique. With all the things you're doing, it just feels different. And I really, really want to highlight the recoil, the shooting mechanics. So cool. It is so cool the way that it's set up to where you're, okay, the more you shoot, the harder it is to hit, but then all the different things on the cards. Really clever. I really like how just on the card, oh, nope, this one's a hit. Nope, it's not a hit because you're covered, and that's what this one specifically said. This one, it was a hit, and it wound up being a critical. And that deck of cards is the same the whole game, but trying to figure out how to modify where you're going to be on that track is really cool, really fun, and just inspired, I think. So I really, really like that. The next thing I'll say is, and I'm going to talk about the amount of rules in just a minute, but once you get it, it does go pretty smoothly. Once you kind of understand everything that's going on, it flows really smoothly. And it's a game that your turn might take longer than you think it does because it doesn't feel like it's taking a long time. You're in it and you're going, this, and that's going to let me do this. Now I'm going to play this card and do this. Okay, and I've done my 2 actions. Okay, next. And it flows pretty darn smoothly. So what are my quibbles with the game? It's fiddly as hell. It just is. And by that I mean there's a lot of rules. In particular, one of the things that there's a whole bunch of rules to learn and a whole bunch of things that even though none of it's particularly complicated, there's just a lot. How does this work? How does line of sight work? Now, line of sight, I have to say, is super fiddly. And it's because of the levels. It sometimes is like, can they see? I don't know if they can see. And what's the rule for that? And then sometimes you just find yourself just kind of leaning down and kind of looking up, oh no, I can definitely see, or whatever it may be. It can get very fiddly. It can feel very fiddly, even though I just talked about how much I like the kind of recoil shooting line thing. That's fiddly too, because you're putting down all these cards, and then suddenly math. It's math. Okay, well, my gun hits on a 60, but I'm shooting into this kind of cover, I'm shooting up, so it's not a 50, it's actually a 60. But then this person's next to smoke, so it's actually a 55. But then, of course, this other thing happened, and now it's actually a 45. But then I have this bonus, and now it's back up to a 60. Now I'm going to put it out, and I moved it over to, so I get a +5. And this one came out, and okay, it's a 50 on the card, but actually it's +5, so it's a 55. But that's still below my number of 60, so that's not very good. But then I'm going to come over here, the next one I have an 80, but no, it's actually -5. It's a lot. And none of it's hard math, it's simple addition, but it's a lot of things that you're tracking, and it can feel fiddly. That is the word for it. And then when you combine that with a whole bunch of rules and things you need to learn, it can feel overwhelming. Even though, as I said, once you get it, it flows. Next thing I'll say is there are only 6 characters in the box, which means every time you play, you're playing with all of the characters. Period. And because they all feel so different, they're also fun, you're just going to want to have more. And you don't. At least well, you can, but you have to buy them separately. Which means the next thing, the ability to play the game solo is separate. You have to buy it separate. And again, I don't have it, which is kind of what I was most excited to kind of try, but don't have it, can't talk about it. And part of that is, and that kind, and I'm bringing that up because I feel like this game is, quite frankly, kind of a lifestyle game if you're into skirmish games. Like if you're really into skirmish games, this is one that you're going to get a ton out of if you spend the money. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can get for this, and you kind of want it because you're going to want all those different characters. You're going to want to be able to mix and match things. You're going to want to be able to kind of draft your teams and make all these things up. But now you're selling a big chunk of change to do this. So I think you really have to be committed to, do I want to play this game a lot? Do I have people who want to play this skirmish game a lot? And then the last two things I'll say is, there are different scenarios that are different types of things. You go on an assassination mission or, whatever. But at the end of the day, they're all kind of the same. It's go kill each other. If you kill them a lot more than they kill you, you're going to win the game. So the scenarios are just kind of different variants on a theme. Right? This is not like having mayonnaise, mustard, and ketchup. 3 different things. Now this is like having Dijon mustard, brown mustard, and regular mustard. So they're in the same world. And again, if you are into all the ways the game plays, that's going to be fine. But if you're looking for something that's going to have a different vibe every time, it's not a hugely different feel. And then the last thing that I will say is the teardown and setup takes a long time. It just does. Now, if you have other people to do it with you, I suspect it goes faster, but it is a long teardown and a long setup. To get it looking so cool with all that cool scenery, it's a long teardown and a long setup. But there you have it, folks. That is Apex Legends. I think if you are into skirmish games and you don't mind the setup and you don't mind the kind of fiddliness of it, and again, that shooting mechanism I think is so cool. But fiddly, if you're interested in that, then I think this is one that you should definitely check out. I think it does a lot of really cool stuff, and the gameplay at its core is relatively simple to do and very satisfying, especially once you start mastering those different characters. So there you have it, folks. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.